good morning to you. We've been talking to Larry Fink this morning about the role of BlackRock actually in China. And one of the questions we raise is what he's going to do if, in fact, China were to really go and try to take Taiwan. What do you think the real risk is? And if you were in charge today, what would you be doing?
Well, I'll tell you, I think you're really right to take on this topic, because I think one of the most important ways to deter an attack on Taiwan and continued coercion is to highlighting the financial consequences for China. And I think the consequence ought to be that China doesn't get access to the dollar economy. You know, if they were to attack China, and also, you know, I think what is really important today is to recognize I don't think investors have factored in geostrategic risk enough into their decisions in China. I think it's really clear at this stage that China is not only going to continue on this path of aggression. There's a whole pattern that you can see just since they foisted COVID-19 on the world. And this is aggression not only oriented on Taiwan, but also oriented on India, bludgeoning Indian soldiers to death on the Himalayan frontier, trying to effect the largest land grab, so to speak, in history in the South China Sea. And then a range of other aggressive actions, like really an unprecedented campaign of economic coercion on Australia. So this is going to continue, and it seems as if investors just aren't even listening to what the Chinese Communist Party is saying, and what they're doing.
General, if you're an American business leader today doing business in China, should you be doing business in China, and do you have an obligation to speak out, knowing that if you speak out, you may ultimately kill your business there?
Yeah, I think when doing business in China compromises your values, I think that this has to be a discussion in every boardroom. Because what's important, I think, is that I think, first of all, this should be a top drawer ESG issue, right? Because genocide should be an ESG issue. For example, the extinguishment of human freedom in Hong Kong, the taking of hostages as to coerce others to conform to their foreign policy. And so what's important, I think, is to maybe take a Hippocratic oath, right, for doing business in China or investing in China or accepting Chinese investments.
But General, then what do you tell a Larry Fink or a Tim Cook at Apple or John Donahoe at Nike or Kevin Johnson at Starbucks right now?
So I say three things, right? Don't do three things. This is the Hippocratic oath, right? Don't help the Chinese Communist Party gain an unfair advantage over free market economies, our economy, in the emerging data-driven global economy, or in defense. The second is don't help the Chinese Communist Party perfect their technologically enabled Orwellian police state, right? Or commit genocide or use forced labor. And then the third aspect of this is to ensure that you don't compromise the long-term viability of your business in exchange for short-term profits. And we see this with so many businesses, right, have gone through this cycle.
But the question is better, this goes back to the better to have a seat at the table and be in the room? And maybe do you even have a seat at the table when you think you're at the, that's the other issue. You think you might be at the table, but if you can't speak at the table, maybe you don't really have a seat at all.
Well, I'm not saying just complete decoupling. That's a red herring, right? I'm saying apply these three criteria to your decision making and try as best as you can, right, to foster relationships with entities that are not really acting as an arm of the party. Now, hey, as you know, that's hard, right? That's hard because Chinese companies have to, by law, act as an arm of the party, and the space for positive interaction is shrinking. It's really important to note, though, that China will never be monolithic or homogeneous, right? And we should try to maximize positive contacts even as we compete in a transparent way. But I'll tell you, I think that our behavior toward China from a financial perspective has been really consistent with the quote attributed to Lenin, even though he may not have said it, but it's too good not to use, which is the capitalists will sell us the rope with which we will hang them. But it's even worse than that, right? We're financing their purchase of the rope.